Before the First World War, New Zealand was divided into two parts, the Pākehā and the Māori. The Pākehā was often referred to as the colonialists. World War One brought the Māori and the Pākehā of New Zealand together as one. Until this day, they are known as New Zealanders. This shows an impact of the war that developed the New Zealand identity and how these young men working alongside each other resulted in the building of a stronger nation as a result to the war. The military history of New Zealand during World War I began in August 1914 when Great Britain declared war on Germany. At the start of the First World War, the New Zealand government followed without hesitation. It was believed at the time that any declaration of war by the United Kingdom automatically included New Zealand. Upon the outbreak of war, the New Zealand government authorised the raising of the New Zealand Expeditionary Force, or the NZEF, for service overseas. Mobilisation for the NZEF had already begun, with preparations discreetly beginning a few days prior to the declaration of war. The day after the declaration of war, the British government requested New Zealand to seize the wireless station on the island of Upolu, part of the Imperial German Protectorate of German Samoa, deeming it a great and urgent imperial service. A mixed force of 1,413 men known as the Samoan Expeditionary Force, or the CEF, under the command of Colonel Robert Logan plus 6 nursing sisters, sailed from New Zealand on the 15th of August 1914. After stopping in Fiji to collect some guides and interpreters as well as some additional escort ships, the New Zealanders arrived at Apia on the 29th of August 1914. Germany refused to officially surrender the islands, but with only a minimal military presence, there were little prospects of a meaningful resistance. The governor of German Samoa, Dr. Erich Schultz, sent a message from the island's radio station that no resistance would be offered. The New Zealanders proceeded to land at Apia and seize the key buildings and facilities without interference. The only opposition encountered was the radio station itself, where the equipment was sabotaged by the German operators. Logan officially declared German Samoa to be under the control of New Zealand the following day on the 30th of August 1914 in a ceremony at the courthouse of Apia. When Vice Admiral or Vice Admiral Maximilian von Spee, commander of the German East Asian Squadron, learned of the occupation, he went full steam ahead to Samoa with the armoured cruisers of the SMS Schusshoch and the SMS Gunstein. Arriving at Apia on the 14th of September 1914, the approach of the German ships was observed by the New Zealanders prepared to defend themselves. However, von Spee and his ships soon departed from Tahiti, where neither side opened fire. The SEF, the Samoan Expeditionary Force, remained in Samoa until March 1915, at which time it began returning to New Zealand, a process completed by the following month. As early as October 1914, the main body of the NZEF sailed from Wellington. Diverted from the original destination in Europe, the New Zealanders were landed in Egypt, where they were held reports to Turkish attacks at the Suez Canal in February 1915. The New Zealand volunteer soldiers remained encamped in Europe alongside their Australian comrades, undergoing training prior to being sent to France. But going to France would change, as on the 25th of April 1915, as part of the New Zealand and Australian divisions, also known as the Anzacs, the New Zealanders landed at Anzac Cove on the Gallipoli Peninsula. The combined British Empire and French Empire operations were mounted in order to eventually capture the Ottoman capital of Constantinople. Because of a navigational error, the Anzacs came ashore a mile north of the intended landing point in the initial landings. Instead of facing the expected beach and gentle slopes, they found themselves at the bottom of a steep cliff, offering the few Turkish defenders an ideal defensive position. Establishing a foothold, the Anzacs found an advance to be impossible. On the 30th of April 1915, when the first news of the landings reached New Zealand, a half-day holiday was declared and an impromptu service was held as well. The origins of the commemorative public holiday, the Anzac Day, recognised by New Zealand and Australia, were held each year from that day on the 25th of April. Despite the blunder at Anzac Cove, the New Zealand soldiers fought valiantly throughout the whole campaign, but it was a failed venture overall. The estimated casualties on both sides were 392,000, of whom 131,000 were killed. With New Zealand casualties, there were 2,721 dead and 4,852 wounded. The Allied forces eventually evacuated in December 1915 and in early January 1916. The significance of the Gallipoli campaign was strongly felt in New Zealand and of course Australia, where it was the first great conflict experienced by these fleeting nations. Before Gallipoli, the citizens of New Zealand were confident in the superiority of the British Empire and were proud and eager to offer their services. The campaign at Gallipoli shot that confidence further. The New Zealand Rifle Brigade, less than 2 battalions, had meanwhile reached Egypt in November 1915 and were sent to the Egyptian desert to help fight in the Sunus invasion from Libya. The 1st Battalion fought 2 Burks in an expensive action southwest of Muttar as part of the mixed force including British, Australian and Indians, one on Christmas Day, the other on the 23rd of January 1916. Both were successful and broke the back of the invasion. In mid-February, the 1st Battalion rejoined the rest of the brigade at Muscat at the Suez Canal area. In Egypt, the New Zealand Expeditionary Force was reorganized into the New Zealand Mounted Brigade and the New Zealander Division Infantry. Reinforcements from New Zealand replaced the Australian components of the division, which embarked for France in April 1916. The New Zealand Mounted Brigade, 147 officers and 3,897 other ranks, remained in Egypt as part of the Anzac Mounted Division. In April 1916, it was deployed in the Sinai Peninsula, where it took part in the ultimately successful Sinai Campaign and Palestine Campaign as well against the Turks. The New Zealanders fought in most of the battles leading up to the fall of Jerusalem and the defeat of the Ottoman Empire. They were praised for their fighting alongside their Australian brothers and British comrades. In 1919, Field Marshal Sir Edmund Allenby said this of the New Zealand soldiers at the Sinai Desert Peninsula Campaign: "Nothing daunts these intrepid fighters. To them nothing is impossible." A total of 17,723 New Zealanders served in this campaign, and New Zealand casualties were 640 killed in action and 1,146 wounded. The least of any nation by far that sent a large number of troops actually. While in England, either freshly from Auckland or Wellington or having already served at the Gallipoli campaign and awaiting transfers to the Western Front, the New Zealand troops were stationed at Sling Camp, an annex of Bulford Camp in Wiltshire. The troops were still stationed at the camp at the end of the war, created a giant chopped kiwi known as the Bulford Kiwi. In France, the New Zealand division settled into the stalemate of the Western Front, and their first major trial was during the Battle of the Somme. It took part in the 4th Army's attack on the 15th of September under the command of the 15th Corps. By the time they were relieved on the 4th of October, the New Zealanders had advanced 3 kilometers and captured 8 kilometers of enemy front line. 7,048 had been casualties, of whom 1,560 were killed. In June 1917, the New Zealand Division further distinguished itself in the storming of Messines Ridge and capturing the village of Messines. On the 7th of June, after the detonation of nearly 500 tons of explosives in huge mines on both sides of the New Zealand sector, the 2nd and 3rd Brigades scrambled over the top, in and out of shell holes and up the battered slopes. Carrying the German front line and supports, they were soon to be into the ruined villages of Messines. The 1st Brigade passed through, with the help on the left by the Solidarity tank, to the final objective. With prisoners and booty including many guns, it was a striking success at no cost. But the German artillery revived, and by the time the division was relieved on the 9th and 10th of June, it had lost 3,700 men, evenly distributed between all 3 brigades. The New Zealand Division's next major engagement was at Passchendaele in October 1917. The division had been training since the end of August to overcome the numerous concrete pillboxes in this sector. The first objective was at the Gallantry Spur, attacked on before dawn on the 4th of October as part of their major advance. The 1st and 4th Brigade forestalled the heavy German counterattack, and the 1st supporting artillery barrage inflicted frightful slaughter on the waiting Germans. Crossing this scene of carnage, the 1st and 4th Brigade gained their objectives after a hard fight, inflicting exceptional heavy losses on the enemy and capturing much equipment. The British attacked on the 9th at Bellevue Spur as part of the main battle of Passchendaele, which gained little ground at a very high cost. Heavy swaths of barbed wire were still grindled in the hillside however, and no matter how much heavy artillery you had, they did not make a dent in either of them, nor did the pillboxes beyond that. The New Zealand gunners slaved to the breaking point only to get a few guns and a few howitzers forward, but stable platforms and accurate fire were unattainable. The division returned to the attack on the 12th of October with the 2nd and 3rd Brigades. There was little to encourage the men that waited overnight in the morass under steady rain. Shelled in their own assembly area, some were shelled again by their own guns, when the tin barrage opened at 5:25 am, and they were led off into the deluge of small arms fire speckled with geyser-like eruptions as the shells exploded in the mud. Worst of all, the wire. Covered with deadly fire, a few gaps were deliberate death traps. Some men tried to crawl under it, some threw themselves at it, and 2 got right through it and were killed in action for hurling grenades at the loopholes in the nearest pillboxes. The left gained 500 yards of slippery slope, the centre 200 heartbreaking yards. The right gained nothing until the 80-odd occupants of 2 blockhouses and the trench used up all their ammunition. Then they were captured, blockhouses and all, by 2 brave and skillful men, sole survivors of 2 Otago platoons. From these small gains, the New Zealanders suffered 640 deaths and 2,100 wounded. For the first time, the division had failed in a major operation. After this failure, the division continued to hold a sector of the line. The division now had 4 brigades, making it one of the largest on the Western Front, and was stationed at Polygon Woods. An attack by the 2nd Brigade on the 3rd of December 1917 gained neutral ground but failed to capture Pākehā Chateau. When the division was relieved on the 24th of February 1918, 3 quiet months had cost 3,000 men. More than 1,873 of them were killed. As the Germans launched their Great Spring Offensive in 1918, the New Zealand Division was rushed to stem the breakthrough at the Second Battle of the Somme, which was a gateway to threaten Amiens. The gap was between the British 6th and 5th Corps at Ankara. After confused fighting, the New Zealanders eventually gained the upper hand, and soon were counter-attacking on advantageous land, stabilising the British line. Later in the year, they excelled in open country fighting that was brought about by the 100 Days Offensive. In their last action of the war, the division captured the ancient fortress of Van Burenstein, Tower of l'Esquenor, in a daring assault on the 4th of November 1918, when New Zealanders were actually using ladders to get over the fortress. It was the most successful action by the New Zealanders on the Western Front, as they pushed east and advanced 10 kilometers, capturing 2,000 Germans and 60 field guns. The town occupied a strategic position in northeast France and had been held by the Germans since 1914, although with no specific orders indicating that the town needed to be captured. The New Zealand soldiers were determined to, and just before midday, the first New Zealand troops reached the outer walls and scaled them with ladders yet again. Propping the ladder against the precariously narrow inner walls, a section of one New Zealand battalion ascended the walls and engaged in hand-to-hand fighting with the fleeing Germans. The few thousand-strong German garrison surrendered soon after the New Zealand soldiers entered the town itself. The infantry were relieved on the eastern side of the forest at midnight on the 5th of 6th of November, and the war ended 5 days later. The division left the 3rd Army on the 28th of November and marched through Belgium to entrain the German fortifiers of Cologne and take up billets in neighbouring towns as part of the Army of Occupation. Demobilisation soon started at Milhem near Cologne, and the division was finally disbanded on March the 25th, 1919. The First World War saw Maori soldiers fight along the Pākehās in a major conflict with the New Zealand Army, although a number fought in the Second World War when the New Zealand recruiters chose to ignore British military policy of the time, disallowing native soldiers. A contingent took part in the Gallipoli campaign as well, and later served in distinction on the Western Front as part of the New Zealander Maori Pioneer Battalion. The course of maintaining the division for 2.5 years on the Western Front was appalling. Although some 13,250 New Zealanders died of wounds or sickness as a direct result of the campaign, including 50 prisoners of war and more than 700 at home, another 35,000 were wounded, 414 prisoners of war, and were ultimately repatriated. The total casualties therefore had reached 50,000 New Zealanders, overall half the number of those who served in France and Belgium. New Zealand war deaths were buried at the commemorative CWGC, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, cemetery with other Allied soldiers. Gallipoli dead were buried at 24 CWGC cemeteries in Turkey, and there were CWGC cemeteries in Egypt, Gibraltar, Greece, and Malta. There are also memorials to the New Zealanders that were missing in action at Tunukbird, and there are 3 CWGC cemeteries at Hill 60 Cemetery, Lone Pine Cemetery, and 12 Tree Corps Cemetery. There are also a number of nurses and overseas operators from 1914 to 1918 that also got their own cemeteries, but we'll cover the nurses in a later date. But that is the story of New Zealand. Of course, race relations would get better, unlike the other dominions. This is the only dominion that actually had good race relations on and off the battlefield, so nothing really to talk about in New Zealand until the Second World War and even into Korea. But anyway, hope you enjoyed. This one obviously goes out to Captain Caleb. 2020 or 2020 New Zealander accent, spot on. The best one you heard. You thought I was from Auckland, so there you go. Also, this one goes out to Bell. I don't know. Anyway, batteries draining down, but thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for going through the whole Palestine, Western Front and Gallipoli. Of course, even though we have all these nations together, can we still face the Germans at the Battle of the Somme tomorrow, on the 1st of July, 1916? Well, it's not the 1st of July, but the season finale is tomorrow, and a spin-off episode is on Sunday called Mission Impossible, Zabaha. So, hope you enjoy that one. Anyway, tomorrow's going to be kind of dark and depressing, so, yeah. Bring your popcorn, bring some tissues, and be ready to cry. Anyway, this one goes out to the always awesome Captain Caleb that was supposed to provide the voice, but I did that 2020 spot on Auckland accent, my boy. I made you proud. I made you proud. This one also goes out to Belle. She's from New Zealand somewhere. I don't know where. I honestly don't know where. And this one obviously goes out to your boys, the sheep of Wellington Farm. Give us a round of a hand for the sheep of Wellington Farm people for making that anchor butter for 150 years, 1856 or something like that. So for 150 years, the Wellington sheep have been making that butter and cheese. My gosh. Oh wait, goats? Nah, I don't drink goat milk. That makes no sense. Oh my god. But you know how to shout out the Wellington sheep. Also Ben and Juno, pretty spot on. That's where I got most of the accent from. I'm so sorry. Oh my god. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. I don't think there's no other Kiwis or lemon squeezies that I have to shout out. So anyway, I will also do the British uniforms maybe Sunday as well. And I would include the Marines one time, but we'll have to wait and see. But some all day tomorrow though. Some. Gonna be very kind of depressing and dreary, so don't expect me to be like it's supposed to be a pretty sad episode. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something, you beautiful Kiwi people. And yeah, that shot Kiwi on the Bilford Cliff. Impressive what Kiwis can do with so little time. Pākehās, man. Pākehās. Oh my god, Pākehās. Caleb was saying that was a racist term, so you know I'm gonna stop before your boy gets in trouble, because you know this is the country with great race relations even before 1940, 1960. So you gotta be PC. You gotta have good race relations. Anyway, hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you tomorrow. I hope I don't go to sleep. I'm trying my best to not go to sleep. Learn something. Since I'm doing a New Zealand episode, I might as well take this time to thank your boy, Captain Caleb, for all that he's done so far, especially with the Gallantry episode. Really appreciate that, bro. And I know you couldn't do this because of school and stuff, but keep grinding in school, doing great. And I sound like a father, so I'm just going to stop here. And yeah, thanks, man. And yeah, the New Zealand accent was 101% on. Maybe just a bit off, but 101% on. Pretty much like a tame Australian accent, if you get me, like a non-bushranger accent if you really think about it. But anyway, Caleb, thanks again, man. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed your country's episode, whether it be the Māoris or whether it be the Pākehās. Hope you enjoy, and hope other New Zealanders enjoy, depending on which subculture they're from. And of course I can mention Wellington, Auckland, the pie thing, the thing that you invented first, but Australia was like, yeah, we want it, the dessert thing with strawberries and cream. I don't know, I can't remember what's that called. And yes, New Zealand has a official wizard thing, so yeah, just subculture references. And of course they were going to fight in Vietnam and Korea. And actually a very funny story, well, not really funny, but a very interesting story is that, and that day is so commemorative that even on the battlefield they will celebrate it. And in Korea, they were actually ambushed by the Chinese, who actually knew of this, and they were actually caught off guard. And a lot of casualties ensued, but the Anzacs were quick to action and repelled the Chinese attack. So even if you catch an Aussie or New Zealand or Kiwi off guard, you're still gonna get a bunch of lead to the face, mate. So don't try this at home, kids. Anyway, longer than this should be. Battery soon dead. Hope you enjoyed, New Zealanders or non-New Zealanders alike, and learn something, of course. Learn something, my dudes. And dudettes. You know, you gotta be inclusive.